At 4:25 in the morning, an 18-year-old girl stood alone on a dark highway. No streetlights, no traffic, no help, just silence. A rideshare driver raised his phone and took a photograph of her. In the image, she's staring into the darkness, a long road stretching behind her. The driver later claimed he took the photo as proof that he left her alive. That haunting image would become the last confirmed photo of Debani Escobar alive. But what happened next would shake an entire nation. 13 days later, Debani's body would be discovered in a water tank inside a motel, only a few hundred meters from where she had last been seen. The disturbing part? Authorities had already searched the motel multiple times, yet somehow they missed her. Tonight, we unravel the mystery behind one of Mexico's most disturbing modern crimes. A story of contradictions, failed investigations, and a photograph that may hold a final clue. Before she became the subject of headlines, investigations, and national protests, Debani Escobar was simply an 18-year-old girl trying to build a future. She lived in the Mexican state of Nuevo Leon with her parents, Mario Escobar and Dolores Basildua. Their home was modest, but was filled with the normal rhythms of family life. Morning conversations at the kitchen table, late-night laughter during movies, and the quiet routines that often go unnoticed until they are suddenly gone. Debani was their only child, and to them she was everything. Her father, Mario, often described her as energetic and determined. If Debani wanted something, she didn't give up easily. Friends remembered her as someone who could walk into a room full of strangers and somehow leave with a dozen new acquaintances. But beneath that outgoing personality was a young woman still discovering who she wanted to become. At 18, Debani had recently begun studying law. It wasn't an easy path, but it was one she felt strongly about. She wanted to understand how justice worked, how laws protected people, and how she might someday use that knowledge to help others. Her family supported that dream completely. To them, Debani's future seemed wide open. Like many teenagers, she balanced school with social life. Her phone was filled with messages from friends, pictures from nights out, and videos capturing ordinary moments. There were photos of her smiling beside classmates, videos from birthday celebrations, selfies taken in the mirror before going out. None of those images hinted at what would soon happen. To those who loved her, Debani was simply a young woman at the beginning of adulthood. And like many young people, she enjoyed nights out with friends, music, conversation, the excitement of feeling like the world was finally opening up. On the evening of April 8th, 2022, she made plans to attend a party. It was supposed to be a normal Friday night. Nothing extraordinary, just another gathering where friends would relax and escape the stress of school and everyday life. Debani left her home that night without knowing she would never return. The party was held at a property known as Quinta Diamante, an estate located in General Escobedo. The house was large enough to host dozens of guests, and by the time Debani arrived, the music was already loud, and the energy of the night was building. Young people gathered around the pool area. Some danced. Others sat together talking under the lights. Phones captured small clips of the night, posting them to social media almost instantly. For most of the guests, it was simply another party. But at some point during the night, something began to change. Witnesses later said Debani's behavior became unusual. Some described her as upset. Others said she seemed disoriented. The details remain unclear because many of the people present gave slightly different accounts. But what everyone agreed on was that an argument eventually broke out between Debani and some of her friends. The tension grew strong enough that her friends decided it might be better if she went home. Around 1:20 in the morning, they contacted a rideshare driver to pick her up. The driver arrived shortly afterward. Debani got into the vehicle. For a while, the ride appeared ordinary. The driver followed the navigation route through the quiet streets leading away from the party. But somewhere along the highway outside Monterey, something happened inside that car. According to later reports, Debani and the driver began arguing. Exactly what was said during that conversation remains disputed. Dabani's father would later claim that the driver had made unwanted advances toward her. The driver, however, denied those accusations. What is certain is that the situation escalated quickly. By approximately 4:25 in the morning, Dabani demanded to leave the vehicle. The driver pulled over along the highway. Dabani stepped out onto the side of the road. The darkness of the early morning surrounded her. Cars rarely passed that stretch of highway at that hour. It was quiet, almost eerily so. For a moment, the driver remained inside his car. Then he did something that would later become a central detail in the investigation. He raised his phone and took a photograph. The image captured Dabani standing beside the highway, her figure illuminated faintly by the vehicle's lights, the road stretching endlessly behind her. The driver later said he took the photo as proof that he had left her alive and unharmed. He sent the image to her friends, and then he drove away. Dabani Escobar was now completely alone. After the car disappeared into the distance, Dabani began walking along the highway. Security cameras in nearby buildings would later provide small glimpses of her movements. One camera captured her approaching a transportation office. It appeared she may have been looking for help or trying to find a phone, but the office was closed. With no one there to assist her, she continued walking. Another camera showed her moving past a roadside restaurant. At that hour, the building was dark and empty. The footage revealed little about her state of mind, but it confirmed something important. She was still alive after leaving the highway. Her path eventually brought her toward a nearby property known as the Nueva Castilla Motel. The motel sat just a short distance from the road. Security footage from the property later showed Dabani entering the area. She walked past the entrance. She appeared to look around briefly. Then she continued deeper into the property. After that moment, the cameras captured nothing else. Dabani had vanished. Hours later, when Dabani failed to return home, her parents began to worry. At first, they assumed something simple had happened. Perhaps her phone battery had died. Maybe she had stayed with a friend. But as the hours passed with no contact, that worry turned into fear. Her parents contacted authorities and reported her missing. The investigation began almost immediately. Police started by gathering information about her last known movements. They interviewed the rideshare driver. They spoke with her friends from the party. They collected surveillance footage from nearby businesses. Piece by piece, investigators reconstructed her final hours. But even with those details, they were missing one critical piece of information. Where was Dabani? As news of Dabani's disappearance spread across the region, volunteers began joining the search. Hundreds of people came forward to help. They walked through fields. They searched abandoned buildings. They scanned the roadsides where she had last been seen. Police brought in search dogs and drones equipped with cameras. Helicopters circled overhead, scanning the terrain below. But the days passed with no results. Meanwhile, the photograph taken by the driver began circulating on social media. Within hours, it had spread across the country. People shared the image alongside messages asking for information. Television news programs began covering the story. Soon the entire nation was watching. With that attention came speculation. Some people believed the rideshare driver was responsible for Dabani's disappearance. Others thought she might have been kidnapped after being dropped off. Another theory suggested she had wandered away in confusion and gotten lost. The investigation followed every lead. Authorities searched the highway. They checked nearby rivers and drainage canals. They questioned dozens of potential witnesses, but none of the leads produced a clear answer. Then investigators turned their attention to the Nueva Castilla Motel. The property was the last place where security cameras had captured Dabani alive. Police searched the motel grounds carefully. They inspected rooms. They looked through storage areas. They walked across the entire property. The search found nothing. Days later, investigators returned and searched the motel again. Once again, they reported that Dabani was not there. But the questions surrounding the motel would soon become impossible to ignore. 13 days after Dabani disappeared, something changed. Employees working at the Nueva Castilla motel noticed a strange smell near one part of property. At first, they assumed it might be related to the water system, but the odor grew stronger over time. Eventually, they traced it to a concrete water cistern used by the motel. The tank was large, designed to store water for the building. Concerned by the smell, workers alerted authorities. Police returned to the property once again. This time, they inspected the cistern. When investigators opened the lid of the tank, they immediately realized something was terribly wrong. Inside the water was a human body. The victim was later identified as Dabani Escobar. The discovery shocked the entire country. For nearly 2 weeks, search teams had combed the area. Authorities had even searched the motel multiple times. Yet somehow, Dabani's body had not been found until that moment. The revelation raised serious questions about how the investigation had been conducted. Had investigators simply missed the cistern during earlier searches, or had something else happened? The possibility that her body had been moved there later became one of the most disturbing theories in the case. For Dabani's family, the discovery brought both grief and anger. Their daughter had been found, but the circumstances surrounding her death made little sense. An investigation was far from over. The next stage of the case focused on determining exactly how Dabani had died. Forensic experts conducted an autopsy soon after her body was recovered. The first official report concluded that Dabani had suffered a severe head injury. According to the report, she may have fallen into the cistern and struck her head during the fall. Investigators initially suggested the possibility that her death had been accidental, but that explanation immediately faced criticism. Dabani's father strongly rejected the idea that his daughter had simply fallen into the tank. He demanded a second autopsy conducted by independent forensic specialists. When the second report was released, it presented a dramatically different conclusion. The independent experts stated that Dabani had likely been sexually assaulted and murdered. The contradiction between the two reports shocked the public. How could two forensic investigations reach completely different conclusions? To address the controversy, authorities ordered a third examination. This time, additional forensic experts reviewed the evidence. Their report introduced yet another explanation. According to the third autopsy, Dabani's cause of death was suffocation. The specialists suggested that her breathing had been obstructed. However, they did not find conclusive evidence of sexual violence. Now, there were 3 separate explanations for the same death: a fall, a murder involving sexual assault, or suffocation. The conflicting reports only deepened the mystery. Instead of providing answers, they created even more questions. Public confidence in the investigation began to erode. Many people believed the case had been mishandled from the beginning. Despite the intense national attention surrounding Dabani Escobar's death, the case remains unresolved. No one has been convicted for her murder. Investigators continue to analyze evidence and review the events leading to her disappearance. But the truth of what happened during those final hours is still unclear. Dabani's story sparked outrage across Mexico. Thousands of people took to the streets demanding justice. Women marched through cities holding signs with Dabani's photograph. Candlelight vigils were held in her memory. For many activists, her death represented something far larger than a single tragedy. It highlighted the broader crisis of violence against women in Mexico. Each year, thousands of women are reported missing. Many of those cases remain unsolved. Families continue searching for answers long after investigations have gone cold. Dabani Escobar became a symbol of that crisis. Her final photograph, standing alone on a dark highway, became one of the most recognizable images in the country. A moment frozen in time. A reminder of how quickly a normal night can turn into tragedy. Somewhere between the party, the highway, and the motel, the truth about what happened to Dabani Escobar still waits to be uncovered. And until that truth is found, One question will continue haunting investigators, her family, and everyone who followed the case. What really happened after that final photograph was taken? If you want to explore more chilling true crime stories and unsolved cases, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications.